Alright YouTube, so we were back, of course, to talk about some Final Fantasy VII Remake, and we're kind of continuing the trend we've sort of been on lately, where we kind of go back to like older topics and discussions that we've mentioned in the past, whether they've been actual videos or just something we mentioned in passing, and kind of looking at them with how we feel today. And in the past, I've definitely mentioned at least a few times that I'd love to fight Sapphire Weapon when it comes to Remake. And I actually came across a Reddit post within the last 24 hours or so talking about this, so I figured what better time to finally make a video, because I've definitely not made a dedicated video about it. It's just something I, at some point on the channel, mentioned. So for a quick refresher of what happens whenever Sephiroth acquires the black materia in the North Crater and summons Meteor to destroy Gaia, the planet senses this, releases the weapons, and they essentially go on a rampage all over the planet. However, our boy Sapphire Weapon is actually the only one we do not get a fight, at least with the North American and subsequent releases after that. The initial Japanese version, for those of you that did not know, actually didn't have Emerald and Ruby Weapon as like super boss fights. And the reason, of course, that we do not get a fight Sapphire Weapon is because it decides to attack Junon head-on, and to be fair, they're not even really affecting him or doing any damage until he takes a blast directly to the face from the gigantic Mako cannon, which blows his goddamn head off. So that always bothered me, right? Because we get to fight every single other weapon enemy except for that one, and I always hoped that we could. I've definitely scoured the bottom of the ocean for a while in my childhood, looking to see if maybe I could find his body. Maybe he didn't fully die, so on and so forth, but of course he's not down there. And it was also before I ever even learned that the crater at the bottom of the ocean was created by Sapphire Weapon. So that's something that's always been with me my entire life. That's what I've always wanted to do. I wish there was a way to fight him. He seems like the missed opportunity. And I feel like he's pretty unique in design, because if you look at the other ones, they're not exactly the same, though Emerald and Diamond are pretty close to the same, but they're all kind of humanoid looking, right? They're bipedal, they can walk on land. Sapphire seems to be pretty much entirely aquatic. It seems like they can all fly, because they all fly out of the North Crater, of course. And it seems like maybe they can all be aquatic if they want to, because we see at least 3 of them within the ocean. Sapphire Weapon, Emerald, and of course Diamond crawls out of the ocean to attack Midgar. It's always thought that Sapphire Weapon could have offered a unique boss fight, at least compared to the other weapons, just because of how different it is by design, and it obviously would have been the better choice to be the one that you fight under the ocean. But from what I read, the Emerald Weapon and Ruby Weapon were retroactively added into the game, and they edited the cutscene for the North American release when they were coming out of the planet to add them into that. So it seems like, at least with the Japanese initial version, Emerald Weapon and them didn't even exist. So there's no aspects of fighting a weapon enemy under the ocean, which is maybe why Sapphire Weapon died. So when it comes to Remake and wanting to fight Sapphire Weapon, my opinion on that still stands. I absolutely do still want to fight him, because I think it'd be interesting. I'm sure a lot of the fans out there have always wanted to fight him too. That's why there's multiple Reddit posts about this topic. But also, that being said, I do like the idea of the Junon cannon killing him. And why I say that is it lets you know how powerful this cannon is, because we later go on to fight multiple different weapons, and they're, depending on your skill level, I guess, and how high level you are, they can be relatively hard fights, especially, of course, the super boss fights. And then you have this cannon, they can just decimate one of them in one hit. Of course, it's like a point-blank range to his goddamn head, but still, you see how strong this cannon is for when it's used later, too, against Diamond Weapon, and of course, Shinra wants to use it to destroy the barrier around the North Crater. But personally, I also like to see that it's not always just our heroes saving the day. I like that, Rufus is actively trying to save the planet, trying to defend the planet from Meteor, trying to defend the planet from, the weapon enemies, trying to also take down Sephiroth. It's actually kind of a fun little thought experiment to think about how the Final Fantasy VII story would have unfolded had President Shinra never been killed, because the things that Rufus does throughout the story, his dad might not have done, right? Like moving the gigantic Mako cannon, the Sister Ray, over to Midgar, and using all the reactors in Midgar to make it even more powerful. Like, President Shinra might not have thought of that. So I like seeing that other people in the world are capable, right? It's not always just our heroes that gotta fight every single threat and take down every single enemy. Like, Shinra, if given the right circumstances, are perfectly capable of taking down these weapon enemies as well. So obviously, the OG fan of me wants to see that exact scene again, but with Remake's graphics. I want to see them absolutely decimate Sapphire Weapon, which they could still do. But maybe what they do differently is that we fight him first. Like, maybe we fight Sapphire Weapon to distract him, keep him at bay, keep him busy while they get the cannon ready. We finish the boss fight with him, and then they blow his goddamn head off. That would be perfectly fine and acceptable. The problem here, of course, is whether or not they'd actually be able to show them blowing Sapphire Weapon's head off. I know it's a gigantic monster, but they had to censor Genova's headless body, right? And it's not Genova getting her head cut off, which Sephiroth does do, at least with the original FF7. It's Genova already missing her head. Like, it's already the headless Genova. We're not watching him behead her. They still did censor that. We talked about that recently with a video a couple weeks ago or so. And that's a problem with the Remake story so far being T-rated, is I don't know if they can show that. Like, they couldn't show something that's already missing its head. I don't know if they can show something actively losing its head. But then, of course, we're falling into the discussion of games ratings and whether or not the future game is going to be more mature, showing more mature content, which we've talked about quite a bit here recently. I'm not trying to reiterate that conversation. But at least as of right now, it's kind of up in the air whether or not they could do the scene the same. Maybe they just have the cannon just shoot Sapphire Weapon in general and like hurt him, wound him, kill him, whatever. But as long as our group gets to fight him first, that's kind of all I want. I'd love to just fight Sapphire Weapon after 25 plus years. I think it'd be a pretty fun surprise for the OG FF7 fans, because if you play the game, you know he's supposed to die. You know when and where and how he dies. And if we, at some point along the way, actually get to fight Sapphire Weapon, that'd be like some pretty good fan service after all these years, I think. Anyways, but dudes, that's going to be the video, so of course I'll pass it off to you. When it comes to Sapphire Weapon, like myself, has it always bothered you that he's the one that got away? He's the one that we did not get to fight. When it comes to Remake, would you like to fight him? And there's actually other weapon enemies that we could potentially fight in Remake. For one, brand new ones. They could just make up some new ones, which is done with some of the other titles in the compilation. You also have Jade Weapon, which was in Before Crisis, that gets released after the Turks defeat Zirconiad. Obviously, Before Crisis takes place in the past, but Remake is some sort of retelling or sequel and stuff like that, so maybe Jade Weapon hasn't been defeated yet in this timeline or this part of the story, or whatever the case, so they could incorporate him. We also have Omega Weapon, and given the sheer idea and concept of what Omega Weapon is, I'd be surprised if it didn't make an appearance at some point in the Remake story, because it's pretty goddamn important. And they also have Vincent's Chaos Form, which is like a semi-weapon that was created by the planet that I believe serves, to some degree, Omega. I'm not fully on my Dirge Cerberus lore, but he's also a partial weapon enemy. A lot of us think that we might fight Vincent in the game, so there's a good chance that this is another weapon fight we could get. Anyways, dudes, that's going to be the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you guys already want to stay more Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Turn on notifications, follow me on Twitter, #DaveYT, and my Discord. Links to my networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Low Gain, or leave it like Cobain.